Hello everyone, this is Alison Steinberg with LindellTV. We are here at the nation's capital with Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Thanks so much for being here today. You represent Indiana's 3rd Congressional District, and we have a lot to unpack because we are currently in a government shutdown that has been ongoing for a number of weeks now.
Yes.
And we continue to hear the same talking points being spewed by the Democrats. They continue to say that Republicans aren't at work, that you guys need to come back to work, and that this can all be resolved when you guys come back to work as if you're on some, lavish vacation. But
Right.
Congressman, you're sitting right here today.
I'm here working.
Did you go on any vacations?
I didn't. No, you don't want to plan a vacation in the middle of session, or in case, the Senate Democrats decide to open the government back up.
Yeah.
We got to be here. So,
That's right.
No, we've been working and listening to our constituents back home. And I'll tell you what, Mike, I was talking to some constituents this morning, and they're like, this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
The Senate Democrats are wanting to basically return the $1.5 trillion that we cut in the big beautiful bill, the Working Family Tax Cut Act, that stopped funding for illegal immigrants and healthcare, and we're actually cutting spending in Washington, and they're mad about it and deciding they're just going to shut the government down. But I think ironically, as the government shut down, the thing that probably sends them over the edge more than anybody else is President Trump and his leadership.
Yes.
They're actually giving him more power with the government shutdown. So it's kind of ironic.
They really are. And it's funny because I hear these Democrats firsthand because I'm out here trying to talk to them if they'll give me their time. They continue to say it's Trump that's responsible for the shutdown. But as far as I know, it's the Senate Democrats who have now voted 9 times to not pass this clean CR, nonpartisan CR.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they've actually voted for it 13 times under Biden, as far as I know, and
Right.
also as recently as March of this actual year.
Right.
So, what is their problem with it this time around? Why won't they pass it?
Well, I think the big issue for Senator Schumer is he's afraid of a primary from AOC.
Yeah.
I think that the last time he voted for it earlier this spring, the left went bonkers, and there was so much blowback on Senator Schumer for caving to President Trump that he's not going to do that again because he's afraid of the far left on the Democrat Party. I think the other factor is that Republicans, we're good at policy. Democrats are good at politics.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other factor is the Virginia election is coming up in November, and they have to win Virginia or New Jersey, something there to gain some momentum back.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why they're willing to just shut the government down and blame President Trump, hope that the voters will believe that. The thing is, Alison, this is just a procedural vote. It's not even the final vote on a clean CR. It's just simply the cloture vote to shut off debate in the Senate. So they are stopping the government from functioning simply on a procedural vote. And if they wanted to move ahead and just vote no on the bill, they could do that. But instead, they're using the gimmicks of the Senate to stop it.
It should really infuriate every American citizen
Really
because this is totally avoidable and it's just all a charade for them. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Speaker Mike Johnson has said, quote unquote, we are working on appropriations. The next package of bills are being prepared. Can you offer some clarity to the American people and explain for us in what forum is this work being done and how does the House operate when the government is shut down?
Yeah, so, right now, the House, we've done our work. And so we've passed the CR, it's in the Senate, we're waiting for the Senate to pass it, but we've already passed some of the appropriations bills for the budget going forward. If we would have those, if the Senate Democrats wouldn't be holding things up, we could have passed a budget by now. But again, they just won't simply let it happen. This is the ideological difference between the two parties. Is Republicans want to cut spending to eliminate our $37 trillion of debt that our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay for, and Democrats don't. They want to continue to tax and spend. And Republicans, we made sure that taxes didn't go up at the end of this year with the Trump tax cuts and the big beautiful bill. We also cut $1.5 trillion in spending over 10 years. This is over a 10-year. So this is not like big time cuts that are going to happen today. It's actually, I wish we would have done more over a 10-year window. And I think that's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. They just simply don't want to cut the size of the federal government. This is their employment agency in Washington, D.C. But Trump is actually trimming the workforce through this, and also he's cutting the budget in spending. So these are all positives for the American people.
They are positives, but yet the Democrats are infuriated about it, and they will do everything they can to combat the work that was done through the One Big Beautiful Bill, which, well, let's not forget, is what the American people people voted for. That's why President Trump was elected. So
That's right.
again, another slap in the face to the American people. And it's funny because Democrats claim, they care so much about healthcare. This is all about Obamacare, which is ultimately, I think, a failed policy.
It is.
Premiums have skyrocketed,
Yes.
and it requires emergency level funding to keep it intact,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
Is there any solution right now that Republicans are perhaps working on as an alternative to Obamacare? Because I know Democrats say you guys need to get back to work and create some, bipartisan efforts to move forward with health care. But it's a very deeply rooted, very corrupt system.
It is.
That doesn't really help anyone at this point in time.
Well, I think what's important is that the American people, we're feeling it. I mean, I hear it every day. I think probably the biggest issue facing Americans is just the rising cost of life.
Yeah.
But then you throw in healthcare on top of that. I mean, my family, we're in business and we're dealing with skyrocketing insurance premiums every year.
Yeah.
And then what our employees are dealing with is higher deductibles. So when they go to the doctor, they're paying out of pocket and they're like, do we even have insurance?
Right.
And that's all because, like you said, it's the failure of Obamacare.
Yeah.
And I think the American people are starting to realize that. And I think that's why Democrats are going to be even in further trouble politically, because their policies are really hitting home right now. And also with Joe Biden's policies of all that spending during COVID has just driven the cost of everything up. So I think the biggest issue facing Congress is our healthcare issues. Now, I think health insurance are taking huge profits. Our healthcare providers are taking big profits as well. They're the service providers. And it's the American people that are paying for it. And so that's why these subsidies need to stop. We're only increasing profits by subsidizing these companies. And so I think it's a matter of starting to just chip away at the funding to show that these companies are the ones at real fault, and then there has to be a reform. I mean, a lot of people use like Medishare, which is it's an Obamacare approved program, and Medishare is growing so fast right now, where families of four are paying $350 a month versus the traditional insurance through United or Anthem, which is sometimes $750 to $1,000 a month with high deductibles.
Right.
So there are alternatives out there, and I think as the American people realize it, we'll have the ability as Republicans to make those changes.
Yeah, I think that's critical. I mean, as a young person who rarely goes to the doctor, if anything, I really try to avoid going to the doctor at all costs.
Me too.
I'm like, do I even need health insurance? I don't even think it's worth it. But it would be nice if there were alternatives that were more affordable for the average American. But I think it all boils down to the fact that this is just, again, a very corrupted system that's been in place for a long time, and we could come up with solutions, and Democrats are fighting to keep it, in its old form that really hasn't benefited anyone, I think. And maybe we should reopen the government to get back to work and start, figuring out new ideas, right?
Yeah, well, remember, Democrats said if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what the reforms that have to happen are, we need to make sure that it's the doctor and the patient that have the direct relationship. Right now, insurance is stuck in between that, and government on top of that. So you have too many hands in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And so, but again, Democrats want big government.
That's right.
And they are in the pocket for these insurance companies, even though they say they're not, but insurance companies are using them as a tool because it's bigger profits to them when taxpayers are subsidizing health insurance.
Yeah.
And of course, our hospital systems are becoming more and more expensive. So at the same time, they think they're helping the patient, they're actually padding the pockets of these big corporations.
That's right, and if I'm not mistaken, included in their $1.5 trillion spending package, it actually includes $50 billion cut from rural hospitals, which Republicans worked very hard to give funding for that. So I guess, they care about Americans unless you're a rural American.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Just wanted to clear that up.
I don't
Thanks,
think most
sir.
rural voters are voting Democrat. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe there's a little correlation there. Let's move on to something a little more lighthearted. It was just announced that Speaker Mike Johnson and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries have agreed to do a debate on C-SPAN.
Yeah.
As we know, debates are largely all about who moderates them. Do you have any insight into that and any thoughts on how it's going to go?
I haven't heard, but this will probably get C-SPAN more viewers than they've ever had. But I think it's, Mike Johnson, he's a constitutional lawyer.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows his stuff.
He sure does.
And he's very smart and quick. Hakeem Jeffries will be using the talking points that are given to him. But I think it's also good for the American people to see the difference between the two leaders. I mean, Speaker Johnson is going to explain why we're at where we're at, and Leader Jeffries is going to try to explain why Democrats are doing what they're doing, and then that way the American people can really hear from both leaders in the House, and I think that it'll be very evident why Republicans should be in control and in charge, because Democrats continue to want to just tax and spend and grow the government.
Yeah, that's right. And I can tell you firsthand, as someone who sits in on these press conferences every day with both of them, I go to the Johnson press conference. It's been happening every morning since day one of the shutdown.
Yeah.
And then, Hakeem Jeffries will have one a little later in the day. And it's just like night and day to watch the two speak. So I'm actually very nervous for Hakeem Jeffries to go up against Speaker Johnson. I just don't even think he's got a chance. But
well, he'll have the mainstream media to back him
he
up.
Will.
Yes,
that'll
help
right.
him.
Yeah, and his pre-approved talking points that they all seem to regurgitate time and time again. Speaking of Democrats, it's now being reported that Democrats are very angry with Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, and they're actually planning to replace him in the 2028 election. I'd imagine Fetterman deciding to support Senate Republicans' efforts, in the shutdown probably has a little something to do with this. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, when John Fetterman was first elected in 2022, I thought, oh boy, here we go, just another liberal, Democrat that would just fall in line behind Chuck Schumer. And
me too.
I applaud Senator Fetterman, and I think it's important, even as a Republican, to be objective and to look at the situation and not just regurgitate the talking points. And I'm a farmer, I'm a business owner, I'm a father and a dad, and I feel like it's important to be fair. And what is not fair is just to continue raising the debt on our kids and grandchildren. $37 trillion is what we're at now. Our interest is more than what we spend on military. So I think John Fetterman is actually being objective. And I know his polling with Democrats is fallen way off because Democrats are mad at him. But got to remember, Pennsylvania voted for President Trump and is trending red. And I think John Fetterman may show the Democrats a way out if they're willing to follow. But even when Bill Maher is saying, Democrats are off the reservation, it means that they should maybe stop and think. But I think John Fetterman's doing the right thing, and maybe he'll switch parties and run as a Republican. Who knows? I mean,
be awesome.
But I think the fact that he's standing with Israel, he's calling out the Democrat leadership for the for the mistakes that they're making, makes him a very interesting politician right now.
Yeah, it really does, and it's especially interesting because I think he just, is an independent, critical thinker. He obviously still leans left on many issues. But it's sad that has to be condemned by the modern Democrat Party, where it's almost like if you're not a full-blown communist, then you're out. And that's seemingly where we're at today in America. Congressman, we're almost out of time, but I know another hot topic right now is redistricting, which is happening in your home state of Indiana. Tell us more about what's going on over there.
Yeah, well, first of all, why is redistricting an issue? It's because California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, they've already maxed out for the most part. They may think they can get another district or two, but because they drew the maps after the census, which we didn't pay much attention to be honest. I mean, to see how they drew the maps to favor Democrats is why the red states are like, okay, if this is how we're going to play, we can redistrict as well. And in Indiana, we have 9 districts, just like Massachusetts. Massachusetts is 9-0 Democrat. We could have a kindergarten class draw the maps in Indiana, and we'd probably get 9-0 Republican. And but instead, our legislature tried to be fair and objective, and so there's 2 seats that lean Democrat, are held by Democrats right now. And I believe because the non-citizens and the illegals were counted in the census across the country, Indiana's not a sanctuary state. California is. And so they have 52 districts. 9 of them are held by Republicans. They're going to redraw their maps and they're going to take it down to 4. So they're going to pick up 5 Democrat seats. And so I think it's important for Indiana to redistrict redraw our maps to offset the liberal and the Democrat work that they've done, that it creates an unfair playing field for Republicans across the country. And so Texas is countering. Missouri, some other states are as well, but Indiana, we could potentially pick up 2 districts there. And I'm hoping that our governor, calls the legislature back together. We need the House and the Senate. We have supermajorities of Republicans in Indiana, in both the House and Senate. So this is really important to make sure that Trump's agenda moves forward, and also that Hoosiers have an equal voice in Washington compared to California and New York.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical, and it's amazing to see how upset Democrats are over this when ultimately aren't they the ones who set the precedent with the gerrymandering?
Yeah, it's interesting when they get so angry about something that we're starting to do, it's because they've already done it.
Exactly.
And it's like, they caught on,
Exactly.
and they get mad about it.
That's right. Well, I'm glad we are playing the same games the Democrats are, and hopefully
Right.
we start to beat them now.
Well, and I know a lot of people are like, well, we shouldn't behave the way that they are, the way that they do. And I agree with that, but the problem is that they're actually giving themselves an advantage to control America that way.
Yeah.
And so if we're we have to fight fire with fire.
That's right.
If we would behave like the Patriots did back in the Revolutionary War and fought the British the way that the British were, following the rules of war, we would have lost. We couldn't fight the British the way that they fought. So we had to change it up. Well, so that's why I'm telling our Republican friends, let's not act like the British. Let's fight fire with fire and let's win.
I love it. That's how it's done. Well, Congressman Marlin Stutzman, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all that you do for America. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Good to be with you.